Your money or your life? 300 years ago, a highwayman said those words with a blade to your ribs, and the choice was easy. Of course you'd hand over the coins. Your life was worth more. But here's the strange thing nobody tells you. You are handing over your life anyway, a few hours at a time, 5 days a week, and you call it earning a living. There was a man who noticed this. A Wall Street analyst who did the math on his own existence, walked away from work for good at the age of 31, and never took another paycheck in his life. He left behind a single dangerous question, one that turns your bank statement into a mirror. What is money, really? By the end of this, you'll never look at a price tag the same way again. Look at an ordinary Tuesday, the alarm you resent, the commute you endure, the desk where you become for 8 hours. Someone slightly other than yourself. We say we're making a living. Joe Dominguez had a colder word for it, making a dime. Because we don't just work at our jobs. We are our jobs. It's the first thing we ask a stranger. So, what do you do? As if the answer were the person. One study of driven professionals found that 6 in 10 were quietly carrying anxiety, depression, or a sense that the whole thing had gone hollow. Successful people, on paper, unraveling in private. That's the trap. Not poverty, not failure. A life that looks like winning and feels like a slow leak. And most of us never ask why the money keeps coming in while the aliveness keeps draining out. Here's the graph that explains it. Picture a curve. On the bottom, how much you spend. Going up, how much fulfillment you actually get. At first, the line climbs beautifully. Your first meal after real hunger. Your first bed after sleeping on floors. Spending buys survival, and survival feels like joy. Keep going, and it still climbs. Comforts, a few little luxuries, the good chair, the second pair of shoes. But then something quietly breaks. The line flattens. And if you keep spending, it turns and starts heading down. More money now buys less happiness. The storage unit for the stuff you don't use. The insurance on the things you don't need. The authors call it the fulfillment curve. And most of us spend our whole lives sprinting up the far side of it, wondering why the summit keeps moving. There is one word that sits at the very top of that curve. Not more. Not luxury. The word is enough. Enough necessities. Enough comforts. Even enough small treats, with nothing extra to weigh you down. It's not deprivation, and it's not excess. It's the peak, the place the whole curve was climbing toward. So why do we blow past it? Meet the Dominguez pen, the author's name for any item you simply cannot walk past without buying. You don't need it. You'll own 3 already at home. But there it is by the register, and your hand is already moving. Multiply that reflex across a life, and you get clutter, which they call a fate worse than going without. Because everything past enough isn't wealth, it's weight. And you paid for every ounce with something you can never earn back. So who figured this out? Joe Dominguez grew up poor in Spanish Harlem, went to Wall Street, and became a technical analyst good enough to retire at 31, on savings of around $75,000. Then he did the thing almost nobody does. He stopped. He never earned another dollar for himself, and he gave his whole program away for free, funneling every seminar fee into a foundation. His partner, Vicki, carried the work into the book You Know, and kept revising it for decades after Joe died in 1997. Notice what Joe is not selling. Not a hot stock, not a hustle. He's the rare teacher with no upside in your obedience. And the first thing he asks you to do isn't to invest a cent. It's to turn around and look honestly at everything already behind you. Step 1. Make peace with the past. And it starts with a number most people have never once calculated. Every dollar you have ever earned. Dig up the tax records, the old pay stubs. Add it all up. A lifetime of income and a single figure. It's usually staggering. Small fortunes have passed through ordinary hands. Then comes the question that lands like a punch. What have you got to show for it? Add up everything you own, subtract everything you owe, and there's your real net worth beside that lifetime of earning. For a lot of people, the gap is a gut check. But Joe gives you a rule to hold while you look. No shame, no blame. This isn't a trial. It's an accounting. You can't change where the river went until you're willing to see the riverbed. Now the question from the very beginning. What is money? Joe would stand in front of a room, hold up a $100 bill, and dismantle every answer they gave him. A medium of exchange? A store of value? Status? Power? True, and all of it beside the point. Then he'd deliver the line the whole book turns on. Money is something you trade your life energy for. That's it. That's what's actually in your wallet. Not paper, not numbers on a screen, but frozen hours of your one and only life. You went somewhere you'd rather not have been, and did something you'd rather not have done. And in exchange, you got this. Money is life energy. And once you truly see that, the next thought arrives cold and clarifying, because your life energy is running out. How much of it do you have? The book does the arithmetic nobody wants to do. Take a 40-year-old. Statistically, a little over 350,000 hours of life remain. Now, subtract sleep, subtract eating, subtract the maintenance of simply being a body. What's left? The discretionary hours. The ones that are actually yours is closer to 178,000. That's the whole account. Not renewable, not refundable. Every hour you sell for money is drawn from that shrinking balance and never returned. So when you spend $1, you aren't spending $1. You're spending the minutes it cost you to earn it. Which raises a question you've probably never asked with a straight face. Exactly how many minutes of your life does $1 actually cost? More than you think. Say your job pays $25 an hour. That's the number on the contract. But the real number is hiding. Subtract the commute you don't get paid for, the clothes you only wear for work, the lunches out because you're too drained to cook, the decompression, the drink, the show, the weekend spent recovering from the week, the vacations you need precisely because the job exhausts you. Add up that time and money, run the division again, and that $25 quietly becomes something like 10. That's your real hourly wage, which means every dollar you spend costs you roughly 6 minutes of life. The $40 impulse buy? 4 hours. Gone. Not from your wallet, from your account of remaining hours. Suddenly, the price tag isn't a price at all. It's a bill written in the currency of your life. So Joe hands you the least glamorous, most transformative habit in the whole program. Keep track of every cent, every single one, that comes into or goes out of your life. Not most of it. Not the big stuff. All of it, down to the coin you fed a meter. And he's adamant about what this is not. It is not a budget. A budget is a cage of shoulds. Spend this much here, that much there. Feel guilty when you slip. This is the opposite. There are no rules, no targets, no shame. It's simply attention. The way a person paying attention to every bite finally notices what they're actually eating. You're not restricting the flow of your life energy. You're just, for the first time, watching where it goes. And what you see will start changing you before you've decided to change a thing. After a month of watching, step 3, bring it all together. But not into the categories a bank would use. Food, shelter, transport, those are too blunt to tell you anything. Build your own categories, the ones that fit your actual life. Then perform the move that makes this whole book detonate. Take each category's dollars and convert them into hours of life energy using your real wage. That $80 a month on magazines you skim and toss? At $10 an hour? That's 8 hours. A full workday every month for paper you glance at. $1,500 in rent becomes 150 hours, nearly a month of your working life, month after month, just for the walls. The numbers stop being numbers. Each one becomes a length of your life, and now you're finally holding the right measuring stick. Here's the heart of it, the part to write on your wall. For every category, you now ask 3 questions. 1. Did I get fulfillment, satisfaction, and value in proportion to the life energy I spent? 2. Is this spending in line with my values and with what I actually want my life to be about? And 3. This is the one that cracks people open. How would this change if I didn't have to work for money? Notice what these questions never do. They never say cut, never say sacrifice, never call anything wrong. They just ask you to feel the trade honestly. Cheap thrills, the ones that fade by the parking lot, start falling away on their own. Deep thrills, the ones proportional to your life, quietly grow. You're not being disciplined, you're being awake. Now make it visible. Step 5, the wall chart. One big sheet up where you'll see it every day, 2 lines drawn each month, what came in and what went out. And something almost eerie happens. The first month, people panic cut, then binge, then rebound. But give it 3 months, and the expense line begins to drift downward on its own, not through willpower. Through those 3 questions, asked month after month. One woman watched her spending fall from $4,700 a month to $1,600 and reported feeling richer, not poorer. A man cut his overhead in half once he stopped spending out of guilt. On average, people find their expenses dropping by something like 1/5 to 1/4 and swear they gave up nothing they missed. The chart doesn't nag. It just shows you the truth over and over until you move. And here the book rescues a word we've all learned to flinch at: frugality. It sounds like coupons and cold showers and saying no to everything good, but trace it to its root, the Latin frux, meaning fruit, and frui, to enjoy. Frugality doesn't mean getting less. It means getting everything out of what you have. The person who reads a library book to its last page, wears the good coat for 20 years, savors the one great meal instead of forgetting 10 mediocre ones. That person isn't depriving themselves. They're squeezing full value from every hour of life energy they spent. It's the Spanish idea of aprovechar, to use well, to not let anything go to waste. This is the quiet joy the whole program runs on. Not less life, more life per dollar. And then the program widens past your own front door. Every dollar you spend, the authors argue, is a claim on the planet, on the oil, the metal, the water, the forest it took to make the thing you bought. Consume less, and you're not just saving money. You're easing a weight the earth is carrying on your behalf, most of it out of sight. It's the old line, turned inward. We have met the enemy, and he is us. This is where enough stops being a personal trick and becomes something closer to an ethic. The stuff you didn't buy is a mine that wasn't dug, a truck that didn't roll. Your restraint ripples outward. For the first time, spending less isn't a loss you're enduring. It's a gift to your life energy and to a world that quietly thanks you for it. Now the program turns to the other side of the ledger, the paycheck itself, and asks a question that sounds almost heretical. What is work actually for? We've fused so much into a job: our identity, our friends, our purpose, our reason to get up. But strip it down, the authors say, and paid work has exactly one honest function: to get paid. Everything else you want from it, meaning community, growth, contribution, you can find, and often find better, off the clock. For most of human history, people worked a few hours a day and called the rest life. There's even a study of an ape who painted with real delight until researchers started paying him and he stopped, and only produced sloppy work for the reward. Attach money to a calling, and you can strangle it. Break that link, and work becomes just work, and your life becomes yours again. But breaking that link cuts both ways. If a job is only for money, then while you hold one, you should value your life energy enough to earn the most you honestly can. The highest pay consistent with your health and your integrity, so you spend fewer hours buying your freedom. Consider Nina. She started as a hotel maid on next to nothing. She didn't despise the work, but she respected her own life energy too much to undersell it. Admin job at $17 an hour. Then, in time, executive director of a nonprofit at $48,000 a year. On her wall chart, the income line climbed so steeply, it literally ran off the top of the page. Not greed, leverage. Every extra dollar earned, spent consciously, is another hour of future freedom bought back. Earn well, spend awake, and the gap between the two lines becomes your escape route. And now, the climax the whole program was building toward. As your expenses fall and your savings grow, that money starts doing something on its own. It earns. A little income arrives that you didn't work for. Plot it as a third line on the wall chart and watch it rise toward your falling expense line. The day they cross, the day your investments alone cover your monthly costs, the authors call it the crossover point. And on that day, work becomes optional. Not because you got rich, because your life energy is finally free. That is what this book means by financial independence. Not a yacht, not a number to brag about, just the morning your time belongs to you again. One later voice in the book offers a rule of thumb, roughly 25 times your yearly spending. But the deeper truth is simpler: enough, working quietly for you. And something strange happens before the lines even cross. People change the moment they can see the date coming. There's a man in the book, call it the day he did the math and realized freedom was 2 years out, not 30. His whole posture at work shifted. He stopped swallowing what he used to swallow, He spoke up in meetings, took the risks, said the true thing to the boss, because for the first time the job didn't own him. He described it in one word: bulletproof. That's the secret dividend the crossover point pays early. Long before you're financially free, you become psychologically free the moment the trap has a visible exit. Fear was never really about the work. It was about needing the work. Take away the need, and the fear goes with it, and you're already halfway out the door. Only now, after all of that, does the book talk about investing. And here it's careful, so let's be careful too. Joe's original plan decades ago was U.S. Treasury bonds, back when they paid rich, reliable interest. The authors say it plainly: that golden window is long gone and may not return. So the revised edition lays out other paths people now use: low-cost index funds, championed by writers like J.L. Collins and Mr. Money Mustache, rental real estate, and Vicki Robbins' own patchwork portfolio. But notice how the book frames every word of it. Nothing here, it insists, is to be taken as specific investment advice. And if you skip to this chapter hoping for a hot tip, it tells you to go back to page 1. Because the engine was never the investment. The engine was the 8 steps before it. This is just where the freed up energy finally goes to work. So step back and ask what financial independence really turned out to be. Not being rich. The authors quote the old wisdom that rich is always just a little more than you have, a horizon that walks away as you approach it. No, it's the experience of enough, and then some. And it shows up long before the crossover point in humbler forms. It's the couple who cleared $26,000 of debt in 2 years and felt the walls move back. It's the cushion of savings between you and disaster. In a country where nearly half of people can't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing. Every one of those is a piece of independence, bought back an hour at a time. Freedom here isn't a lightning strike at the end. It's a thing you accumulate, quietly. From the very first month you start telling the truth about your money. And on the far side of the crossover point, a different kind of wealth comes into focus. The kind that was never on the wall chart. The authors call it natural wealth, and it rests on 3 things: your abilities, the skills and health you can always draw on, your belonging, the people who'd show up for you at 3 a.m., and your community, the web of neighbors and friends and shared work that no market can price. This is the wealth that grows exactly as your need for money shrinks. As Joe put it, consciousness grows faster than inflation. The whole program, it turns out, wasn't really about money at all. It was about trading a life spent earning for a life spent living. Rich in the currency that was always the real one: time, attention, each other. So, your money or your life. At the start, it sounded like a threat with a blade behind it, a choice you'd be forced to make. But that was the lie all along. You were never cornered into choosing. You just quietly agreed to trade the second away for the first, hour by hour, until it felt like the only way to live. This book hands the blade back to you. Every price, it says, is paid in life energy. So, spend it like the one thing you can never earn back, because it is. Find your enough. Watch the 2 lines climb toward each other. And on the day they cross, take back the hours you thought you'd sold for good. It was never your money or your life. Done right, it was always and only your life. If this moved you, the next book we'd hand you is The Simple Path to Wealth